Welcome again. Thank you for joining us. This is a Chromatic and Storybook webinar called Force UI AI Agents to Build Accessible UI. My name is Kyle Gatch. I'm a DX, which is Developer Experience Engineer on the Storybook team here at Chromatic. And with me is...
Hi everyone, my name is Dominic. I'm one of the co-founders here at Chromatic and Storybook, and really looking forward to kind of sharing the latest and greatest in MCP land and this self-healing workflow through the lens of accessibility that we are building. Just a couple of points to get started. Uh, Ask questions in the using the Q&A tool. Um, traditionally we have a lot of like activity also in chat, so don't hesitate to chat with everyone else in the room. We have a bunch of like professionals, folks that are doing software engineering, front end engineering, day in and day out. So it's a really good and smart crew in the comment section, and yeah, don't hesitate to ask questions and participate. We will live kind of like answer questions as we see them. That's what I'm here for. And Kyle's gonna take us through the demo.
Okay. Um, so let me share my screen. Okay. Is it sharing, Dom?
Yep.
Great. Thanks. So, as I said, this is all about forcing AI agents to build accessible UI. And first, there's going to be like a quick slide deck, just kind of orient ourselves with what we're talking about here. And a majority of it is going to be a demo. And like Dom said, we encourage questions, and it's kind of more of a conversation than a presentation as much as we can. So let's get started. So getting agents to write accessible UI code is hard. Um, they are pretty good at writing UI these days, but not so much with making it accessible. And to demonstrate that, I want to show you something here. So this is a tool that kind of turns your agent into a design engineer, is how it bills itself. I purposely left the name off because I don't want to shame this particular tool. I just want to show kind of a phenomenon in the industry. So presumably, they kind of dog-fooded their own AI tool to build this website. And yet, when I ran automated accessibility checks on it using Lighthouse here, um, I found a number of issues. And it specifically says it codes with accessibility. And then down at the bottom there, that's from where it goes into detail of what it checks for. It says it finds contrast failures. And yet, their own site had contrast failures. And so it's pretty hard to get agents to do this reliably. And we want to try to fix that. And so that's what I'm here to explain. We found the best way to do this starts with Storybook. So Storybook is a catalog of your components. And for each of those components, there's a bunch of example usages, what we call stories. And there's also documentation. This could be kind of like design token kind of things or foundational stuff. It could be instructions on how to get started with your system. It can also be the prop types of those components, which Storybook will automatically infer and display as documentation. It could be do's and don'ts, best practices, whatever you want. We've also empowered Storybook with some tools. So you can run component tests, which are like interaction tests that run in a real browser for your components. And then you can also run accessibility checks, and you can do both of these directly from within the Storybook UI now. So that's a lot of all that stuff is really helpful for humans as they develop. They can reference the documentation, they can look at the component examples, they can actually play with those examples. And then as they work, they can check that work with the component tests and the accessibility checks. You can turn on watch mode, for example, so that that happens automatically as you work. And so we realized, well, if it's helpful for humans, it's helpful for agents too. And so that's what our Storybook MCP tool does, is it takes all of that context that Storybook contains and holds and provides it to agents in a way that not only they can read, but is really efficient for them to read so that you're not consuming too much of your context window as you work with an AI agent. Basically, Storybook MCP will make the agent an expert in your components. So it's made up of three tool sets. So MCP, by the way, MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. It's just a kind of increasingly standardized way of providing knowledge and tools to an AI agent as they work. So an MCP server is made up of tools, and for ours, we group those tools into three different tool sets. So there's a docs tool set, and what that does is it'll pull in your components, their prop types, their stories, and other documentation that might be in your storybook. And what that allows the agent to do is to reuse your components instead of making up its own. Um, Agents without these tools are trained on the corpus of like front end development out there, like all of it. And unfortunately, as most of us here probably know, that corpus of code that's out there is likely not to be accessible. We just, as an industry, have not done a great job of making our code accessible to all users. And so when the agent pulls in that broad set of knowledge, it also probably generates inaccessible code. So the best way to make sure that something is accessible is not to like do the work to make it accessible again. It's to reuse the work that you've already done that you know is accessible. And so this will reuse those components that you've already done the work to make accessible instead of making up its own. So that's the first tool set is docs. The second tool
Yeah.
set, oh yeah,
Can I add something? For the doc
sure.
stuff, what comes to mind, the analogy that comes to mind is garbage in, garbage out. Your agent is only going to be as good as the training data, and that training data like comes from humans. And oftentimes that training data comes from like the median, like generic median of the entire industry. And if you are working in a professional context, that is not acceptable for shipping to production because the median of the industry might have a bunch of accessibility errors, just errors in general that probably don't meet your corporate standards.
Yeah, well said. So the second set of tools is under the development tool set, and this is what teaches the agent the story authoring skills it needs to, when it generates UI, it'll also generate stories alongside those, which not only provide you like a feedback loop. So you'll see here in the demo that it'll link to the stories that it creates or that matter for its work. So that you can just click into the storybook and immediately see what that agent has produced and review it, not just visually, but like play around with it if it's interactive. That also, each story can be a test, which is our third set of tools. So there's this testing tool set that provides the agent the ability to run component tests, including accessibility checks. And our goal with this is not just to check its work, but to get it to automatically fix its work. Um, and we've been fairly successful in that goal. So it'll make kind of like a self-healing loop is the way we call it. So that if it builds something inaccessible at first, it'll run those tests, discover that it's inaccessible or could be inaccessible, and then try to fix it. Or if it's something like a color contrast issue and it doesn't know how to fix it, it'll at least report it to you, and then you can guide it into a fix. So with that, let's look at a demo. Okay, should see meal drop. Dom, is it showing
Yep,
meal drop?
I see mail drop.
Okay, just
And
want to make sure the screen
Bennett from
sharing
the
switch works.
chat says Storybook's testing features are amazing. So I think this is going to make
Yeah.
them a little bit more amazing, Bennett.
Yeah, kind of in summary, like what we've built here is all of the features that we've been building into Storybook, especially over the last like 2 years. Um, we've provided the agent the ability to use all of those features. So all that work that you've put into your storybooks to document your components, to make them testable, all of that stuff is now usable by the agent. So let me show you. Um, if you've been to our webinars before, you're probably more than familiar with this site, but we have a great demo that one of our engineers, Jan, built for us called Meal Drop. It's like a Uber Eats or Postmates clone where you can like pick a restaurant and order a cheeseburger and some fries and then see your cart and go through a checkout flow. So that's kind of the gist of it. I actually have two storybooks for this. So I took this app and I split it into two. So the first one is what you might think of as like a design systems component library. So it's got like a button and a badge and a logo, modal, etc. Um, and we've got some docs for those components. So I don't know. Yeah, it looks like this is using custom MDX, so it's not showing some things that our automatic docs would do, but um, yeah, it's just fairly basic storybook. And then I've got another storybook here for the more app portion of it, which is kind of all the pages of it. So here's like that burger restaurant I just showed. Here's that same page in the storybook. And we could, for example, put some items in the cart. Oh, looks like that doesn't actually have maybe this one. Here we go. So we could simulate clicking the cheeseburger and then showing how that opens the modal. Okay, so let's show the MCP part now. So when you're running the MCP server, you'll get something like this, and it just puts the /MCP route. In a second, that's going to redirect to what we call the component manifest. This is the heart and soul of at least the docs tool set. So the part that allows the agent to reuse your components and like sucks up all the documentation you've captured. So this is showing all of the components that it pulled in, as well as down at the bottom, some unrelated documentation. So these are MDX files that I have in the storybook for colors, typography, and iconography. But this actually isn't what the agent sees. This is just a helpful kind of debugger view so that we can show you what it can and cannot pull in as far as the documentation goes. What the agent sees is just raw JSON. So this is the components, this is the documentation. And we found that that's the most efficient form for the agent to absorb all this information. So we just provide it raw JSON.
Uh,
Um,
I
yes,
just want to add something here. If you go back to two tabs over,
the debugger.
yeah, to the manifest. So the way that uh, I tend to think about what is happening here is it's kind of like a zip. Uh, uh, if you're familiar with like a zip file, which compresses data, um, we are taking all of this like raw documentation, we are compressing it and then serving it to agents. So the underlying source data is actually the same. It's just packaged in a way that is less expensive to transport, just like a zip file, and faster to send across the network, and that in practice saves you time and saves you money. In addition to that, there are things about that kind of compression step and optimization step that we do to validate the fact that the validate that your docs are actually working, and we prevent invalid docs from making it to agents by omitting them. That way, your agents again aren't working, with invalid things, and then just repeating those invalid things again and again.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Um, I do see a question. Is JSON format the best? What about Tune? So Tune is a just an alternative data format designed for agents in particular. We did some light testing with Tune and found that JSON did actually outperform it. We'd love to test that some more, but we just have maybe some more fruitful avenues to work in first before we polish that. So great
Yeah.
question.
Also, yeah, in that testing, we looked at XML, we looked at JSON, we looked at Markdown,
Yeah.
etc. And the thing is, like, these agents change all the time. The
Hmm.
underlying models change all the time. So how optimized one model is for tune versus for Markdown, that can shift that like drastically within a month
Yeah.
or 2 months.
Yeah. We also this is a huge sneak peek, but we're looking at how we can use this manifest to like completely re-architect the entire core of Storybook. So JSON is also a little more portable in that sense.
Yep.
Um, multi-purpose. Okay. Um, so now that I've covered the manifests, which again is kind of like the heart of what we're providing to the agent, I want to show you the thing in action. So I've got VS Code here. That's how I prefer to develop with agents. Let me just close that here. So to set this up, it requires a couple things. One is we've got this right now, it's experimental. Um, so you have to enable the component manifest. So that just generates the manifest like you just saw. And then to run the MCP server locally, we have an add-on. Whoops, sorry about that. We have an add-on for that. And here I'm just showing you that you can turn these various tool sets on and off. Um, so I've got this set up for both of my storybooks. And then in VS Code, I'm just using the localhost MCP route here as the URL for two different MCP servers. So I have one for my app and one for my UI. And so that just gives the agent knowledge about both of those storybooks. So I've got a prompt here. Don, does it look like my font is large enough?
I think you can like enlarge it a little bit.
Bump it one more.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a little hard to read, but that's okay. Um,
Yeah, so
okay.
for the purposes of demo, like there's like a one quadrant over here which is chat, one quadrant over here which is the files, and then the terminal output is in this other quadrant.
That's right. So the prompt here, one of the things we're still experimenting with is how to. So here's my Claude.md, which is just kind of general instructions for the agent. And like I'm trying to get it to use these tools, and it's not 100%. So on this demo, I definitely want them to be used. So I went ahead and said always use, and that gets the job done. So the heart of the prompt though is inside the web app because I want it to make it like in the app and not in my UI components. Um, add a customer reviews component to the restaurant detail page. It should contain multiple reviews. Each review should display an avatar, name, star rating, and review text. Use placeholder images and friendly content. It should begin with a form for new reviews, which uses the button secondary theme color. That color is like a light green, and the standard button text is white. And so about half the time, the agent generates something that's inaccessible. And so hopefully that makes for a better demo. So hopefully that's what it'll do this time. So I'm going to kick that off. And I've got it set where it's going to have to ask me for permission every time it uses an MCP tool, just so I can highlight each of the times it calls one of our tools. So first, it's going to list all the documentation. So this is just an index of every available component, and it's wanting to do that for the UI. Just allow in this session. Oh, and the app. So now it's got the list of components, and now based on that list, it's going to be like, oh, all right, for this task, I'm going to need more information on the stars component. I'm going to need more information on the button, the typography body, typography heading, and the restaurant detail page, as well as an input. And okay. And sometimes it'll come back and ask for more information after it starts working. We'll see.
That's
It's
pretty
always
cool. I mean,
sometimes when it comes to
it's
agents. Oh, what was that?
it's it's pretty cool. It's like asking for exactly the things that it needs to do its job.
Yeah. So here, let's see, maybe it already did that.
And
Yeah,
I
okay.
think one thing to call out here too, just while it's working, is that there's a two-stage context hydration that we built. The first stage is like listing all the components, and then the second stage is getting information about specific components. So we don't just give the agent like the entire payload of all the context in your storybook first, and then have it do whatever it does. That's like too much. It overloads the
Yeah.
context and leads to worse results. What we found is that this two-stage context hydration is cheaper and faster at the end of the day too.
Yes. Yeah, that on-demand nature of it is really important. And we've actually tweaked exactly which tool does what and how much quite a few times, just to get that right. So now it's asking, okay, I need to write some stories. Teach me how to do that. So that's what that is. And then it looks like it pulled in, it wanted some more information on a select component. I've actually never seen the agent ask for that for this particular prompt. I'm very intrigued what it's going to make.
Yeah, y'all, this is a live demo, and we're doing it with like a non-deterministic agent. So, yeah, you're seeing exactly what we're seeing in real time.
Yeah, it's always fun. I do have some canned pre-run prompts in the ready to go if this turns out to not do something helpful, but it's looking pretty good so far. All right, so now it created a component. You can see it reused a bunch of components from our UI package. Now it's going to create some stories.
Yeah, Omar has a question in chat. How much documentation from the component makes its way to the MCP, particularly if they use Storybook web components? Does it pass JS doc, TypeScript, props, events, methods, etc. info into kind of like what we already see in Autodocs?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Omar, was it?
Yeah, Omar.
Okay. Um, so first off, right now this only works with React. Um, There's no reason it can't work with web components, though. We just start with React because that's by far the largest portion of our user base, and so we're in a stage where we're wanting to receive feedback for this thing, and so we need to go with the largest user base. So it's React only right now, but for web components, that's absolutely what will happen. Is whatever you have annotated in JS doc is what we pull in. We also pull in any like documentation that you've added in like raw MDX. We'll pull that in as well. Um, but we've it seems like the agent benefits more from the usage examples than from the prop types. Like it'll look at an example of how the component is used with this particular prop, and that'll guarantee a correct result more than just looking at the types. Okay. So now it's asking to run the tests. Like it wants to check its work. So I'm going to let it do that.
And we have a lot of questions in the chat about uh, supporting non-React frameworks like Angular. And just to be clear, like web components, Angular, Svelte, everything that's not React, um, we're gonna we are doing those integrations after we ship the React thing. The main reason, and maybe to reiterate, Kyle, is we want to really nail the developer experience before opening up to to new frameworks, and the way
Sure.
that we can do that in a most like the most pragmatic manner with the team size that we have is to focus on React and then really get the tools right. Things like that two-stage context hydration, and then open it up to new frameworks.
Yes, exactly right. Um, So it looks like it found some kind of error with an apostrophe and tried to fix it. And now it's going to run tests again. But I realized this is an opportunity to go check the accessibility before it tries to fix anything. So I'm going to, instead of waiting for it to link me to a story, I'm going to go to the storybook. Oh, and then I'm hoping, yes, good. So it created some stories for my customer reviews component. So it looks like this. I don't know. That doesn't look super accessible. Let's go. Interesting.
Maybe it's the disabled state.
Yeah, maybe. Which I don't love that it did that. Um, okay, so I'm going to let this go, and then I'll probably ask it to not do that, and then run from there. Because while that is technically accessible, experts recommend not doing that because it's a lot easier to know why something's disabled, um,
Yeah.
not on the client
Bennett
side.
Bennett in the chat is like, yeah, disabled buttons don't need to have accessible color combos, so makes
So
sense.
that's true for automated tests and like by like the letter of the guideline, but I would argue it's not a very accessible experience. Like people still want to know what that button is. So,
Yeah, the letter of the
okay.
law versus the
So it's
intent.
saying they all passed, and now it's going to, so it checked just the stories that it wrote, and now it's going to check the integration into the restaurant detail page. Let me just go ahead and, all right. So looks like everything passed. And there's the links to the story. So I can like click that. There's that same story we just saw. Okay, so I'm going to try to get the agent to the button should not be disabled prior to submitting. Just going to keep all this work it has so far. All right, let me go check that. Oops. Okay. Aha. So okay, so it did make it accessible. That's great. Let's go make it inaccessible and see what it does. So I'm just going to keep all this stuff. I'm actually going to start a new context because otherwise the agent is smart enough to be like, the user made this color white instead of black, and like that informs what it does, and I don't want it to know any of that. So I'm going to find the button, which is here, and I'm going to give white if I could type. There we go. Just make sure that displays. Yeah. So now we have a color contrast issue. And I'll go ahead and use this opportunity to show um, how I can run component tests. So I can run it for everything with this, or I can go to the menu here and run it just for this component. So now I'm seeing accessibility violations. And if I click that, I'm already here, but if I click it, it would navigate me to the story and to the thing. So I can see I've got color contrast issues. If I want to, I can jump to the particular element that has it. So that's that's Storybook's tools. Now let's see if the agent uses it. Okay. Um, Run the test. Ihor, that is an excellent question. So they're asking, why did it create its own style button when there's a button in UI component library? That's something I personally want to test because it reuses everything but button very consistently. And I think it's because I'm asking it to specifically use a different color. And so it's like, oh, well, I need to style this thing. And so it trips it up. But I want to see if there's some way I can tweak the prompt so that it uses it.
Yeah, I think that's makes a lot of sense. Kyle, we are forcing it to be inaccessible for this demo. Um, and that can be tricky for agents to understand.
All right. So it found a color contrast issue. Um, the foreground text and the background text is not sufficient. It's essentially invisible against its background. Either darken the button background or change the text color. So I'm going to go change the text color. I want to see what it does. All right, so it's referencing the theme. Try to use a theme color.
It
Nicely
seems
done,
like it's
agent.
doing its job.
And now it's going to rerun the test to see if it did its job well. There we go. Ideally, it would have linked me back to a story, but that's okay. So there we go. It fixed the issue.
Oh, wow.
So
And
you can see
so,
how in this workflow, it used all of the capabilities of the Storybook MCP tool. It used the docs to reuse the components and like use them correctly, except for button. Um, it used the development tools to generate stories and then earlier link me to those stories. And then it used tests to check its work and find the accessibility fix, fix it, and then verify that fix. And while I had to be here in the loop to like verify it was okay to use the tools, of course, once you're comfortable with it, you can just say, this is always allowed. And then it would have been able to do all of that without hardly any input from me.
can we show that like the workflow without any input from you?
Oh, just like run it again?
Yeah, just
Let me, I don't know if I can improve that.
I think you approved it before. The tool.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I just outright allowed it though. Let me test something. Yeah, see. So I need to do that. Okay. Stop that.
Yeah, so right now we are just making sure that all the tools are allowed in the session so
Yeah,
that all of it
this is just
can run automatically.
right. Yeah, see.
Yeah, once you do this on your own local machine and allow it for the session or the workspace, all the stuff will just run.
Okay, I think we're good. Okay, so let me start a new context. Um, Let me just get rid of all this.
Hey, Laurent, is the session recorded to share with your team? Yes, we'll
Yes.
send you a full video after.
Okay. Um, so I can run that same prompt. It might be more fun to run something else though. Does anybody have an idea of what we could do within this meal drop app?
Yeah, type it in the chat. So you did the stars demo
Hmm.
or the review. Maybe something in the checkout
Hmm. So
or messing with the card, like card design and changing the color or the click target. Zachary says add a
add a
discount
promo
section to the
input to the cart. Oh yeah, or a discount site. Yeah,
yeah.
great idea. Let's do it. Okay.
While it's working, we have a couple more questions. Uh, in order, when we have 10 to 20 agents, is it better to use both Storybook MCP and Playwright MCP, one or both? Um, what do you think?
Yeah, we're still experimenting with how this works together with other MCP tools, such as Playwright. Um, but it's not that they're mutually exclusive, but we think that Storybook MCP, once it's working fully well, will obviate most of the need for Playwright MCP because you can preview the work directly in Storybook. You don't need it to spin up a browser of the app.
Yeah, and just to understand a bit about the tool chain underneath test, we use vtest. Vtest spins up a Playwright browser, so you're still using Playwright. You're just using a different API for the MCP. And what's more, there's uh, Playwright is usually deployed when, at least at the MCP, is deployed on a staging application or your application running on your local host. Whereas
Um,
MCP is running in isolation, or Storybook's MCP is running in isolation, just like Storybook. And so, if you're developing your components in your front end in isolation, like we recommend in Storybook, you should probably be using Storybook's MCP. When you go to do that kind of like final layer of like integration testing, testing that your back end is connected to your front end, is connected to whatever APIs that you need to deal with. That's when Playwright is a fantastic tool, and Playwright MCP can really help you.
yeah. While he was answering that, I actually stopped the agent because I realized it wasn't using the MCP tools. So I had to go add this, always use the tools to my prompt again. And again, we're working on figuring out how best to do it. But the agents are and the models are constantly changing under us. And so this used to work, and we haven't figured out how to get it to work again.
That corresponds with a question from John, who asked any tips for getting Claude to actually follow rules defined in Claude MD. Um,
As soon as
you
we
tell
know,
us.
you will know too. All right, so here we can see it did call the MCP server just like before. It listed all the documentation and then it looked for some specifics. So in this case, it was shopping cart menu, order summary, um, input, and button. Hey, it looked at button. Let me expand the to-dos again since we're not approving so much.
Another attendee asked,
Whoops.
how does it know what is accessible to users? It being the agent. Uh,
Yeah, I can cover
how?
that. So what it's doing behind the scenes is it's running the component tests, which include accessibility checks. Both of those depend on our vtest add-on. So if your storybook is built using Vite, then it can use the vtest add-on to. It's really cool. I cannot believe we engineered this. So it turns your stories, it uses a Vite plugin to transform them into a vtest test, so that to run the stories, it's really just behind the scenes. I don't know. Yeah, you can see it here. Um, it's just running vtest in the CLI. So they're not stories anymore. They're just tests. Um, so it runs those stories in the CLI, and then alongside those tests, it'll run whatever accessibility checks. And those are run through an open source library called Axe Core, same thing that powers Lighthouse and the Axe um, browser extension. It's kind of the standard, but it is just automated checks. And so while it's a good proxy for whether or not your component is accessible or the UI that you're building is accessible, it is not a guarantee. You still need to test it yourself with screen readers. You still need to ideally test it with people with various abilities and disabilities. So that is still necessary. This is just a good way to kind of take care of the low-hanging fruit, which
Yeah.
will then make it way more efficient to put it in front of like actual users because that research can be expensive.
Lauria asks or suggests it would be helpful if the accessibility info for violations pointed to the corresponding WCAG success criteria.
I believe it
I believe we
does.
do
I'll
that.
wait for it to finish
Yeah.
here and then I'll show you. If you're referring to in the agent chat, that would be really interesting. I wonder if we can get it to do that.
Ronald, I wonder if actual users could be synthetic with the correct
Ronald has a great
training.
question, wondering if the actual users I referred to could be synthetic with the correct training. Um, oops, looks like my Zoom froze up. Am I okay?
Yeah, you can continue.
Okay. So Ronald was wondering if actual users could be synthetic with the correct training, and there are many companies and organizations out there that are trying to build exactly that. Um, I think there's some hope for it, but personally, I think UI in general, but accessibility in particular, is so human centric that I'm not sure we'll ever be able to completely
Yeah.
remove the human from it. I'm not sure that we should, to be honest. I think it's a
Yep.
good thing that we have people in there.
People are good, as it
Yeah.
turns out. Allison asks, is there a way to provide a target to the accessibility test, like A, double A, triple A?
Yes, there is. Um,
You would do that through the storybook configuration,
that's
Allison.
right.
So
I'm
you set
gonna
that in.
jump over
If you
real quick just to grab that link so I can share it. Um, there you are, Allison. Okay.
and then
Um,
Arthur asks, could you share your meal drop setup, just really quickly? I think you can see it here in Claude.md. Um, and if you are
wait,
using
the
it,
repo, is that what they want?
I think I think Arthur is, if I'm inferring correctly, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Arthur. Just looking at the actual Claude MD, like whatever agent setup we have for meal
Oh,
drop.
sure. So just in case it was the repo, it is open source. So there you go.
Yeah.
Um, but in CloudMD, let me just close this. Um, so yeah, here's my system prompt, if you will. I'm not sure if that's the right
Yeah.
term, but
It, yeah, and this is related to John's earlier question, like how do you get Claude to do the right thing consistently? Um, as especially as like, the major or the minor versions of, Claude change. Um, it, Claude MD has been our preferred way, and we try to encode as many of the things we want it to follow as possible. Again, the ecosystem and the LLMs are changing from under us. So what might work right now might not work in as well in like a month or 2 months.
yeah,
So as you uh, kind of learn, and we would love if you could kind of share your knowledge too, so that we can improve our own kind of guidance.
yeah, certainly. Um, all right. So it actually said like it's been working a while. Do you want it to continue? So I'm going to use that as an opportunity to review what it did. So it generated a bunch of UI and then it ran the tests and it said the story's passed, but there's an accessibility color contrast. So again, um, so per the instructions, that's referring to the testing tool has some instructions in it of like if you encounter an accessibility issue, this is what you should do. Um, so it fixes it and then it reruns the tests. Now it passes with no accessibility violations. Okay, so it's looking like it's doing good work. I'm going to let it
I mean,
continue.
so it just did the self-healing right
It
there
did.
automatically,
It totally did.
and we didn't have to do anything.
Interesting. Oh, it pulled up the wrong. Okay. It got a little confused on which one it wants to open. So we're gonna see what. Yeah, okay. So VS Code actually has a built-in browser. So it can pull up the story directly, which is really cool.
Yo, this is brand new too. This is the one of the latest versions of VS Code. So this simple browser, the
Well,
MCP app.
it actually goes even further than that. So this linked me to, well, kind of earlier, you saw it link me to a story. If you're using VS Code Insiders, that supports a protocol called MCP apps, which actually lets you like embed a little running website inside of the chat window. And so what we can do and what we've taught the agent to do is generate a story preview directly in your chat window. So you don't just get story links like this, you get actual stories that you can click with and interact right there in the chat window. It's a really cool workflow, but I don't like relying on insiders. That makes me a little nervous. So that's why I'm not using it for the demo. Um, okay, so we got promo code input. Let's see, promo code applied. So here we've got interesting. Okay. Wonder if that's nope, it's just a state. All right. Um, what other story did it add? Order summary with a discount. Okay.
Wow, so it did all of this.
It
It added the
seems like
discount,
it. I'm
added the
curious
promo
though.
code, gave you a bunch of stories like throughout your storybook that addressed different states of that.
Yeah. It's interesting that it didn't give me unless empty. Yeah, it didn't give me a version with a non-filled in. Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
It
there it
just
is.
didn't link me to it. Cool.
And so
Yeah.
just
So
to
I
recap what happened, it
go ahead,
added
Tom.
all of this promo code stuff. It gave you a bunch of like links um to the relevant stories that it added. Um, it had it generated code, fixed its own accessibility errors, and then just I guess just did the job.
Yeah. Yeah. It totally did. Obviously,
Naranda
there are some
asks,
layout issues. Like
yeah.
that button and that input should probably be the same height, but you can fix it with
Uh,
further prompting.
Naranda asks, did it add interaction tests for it, or can it?
It certainly can. Let's try that. Um, test the. I won't even use the word interaction. Tests entering a promo code and seeing the discount.
Jan asks, is it possible to get access to the repo to play around? Yeah,
Yeah, I linked that in the chat.
yep. So Steve
um,
asks, we're building a Claude plugin that fully understands our component library and our design patterns. Is there a way to leverage Storybook MCP within our plugin that can gain knowledge from Storybook, like docs, props, and examples?
yes, but it's not documented. So the add-on that runs our MCP is open source. Let me share that link. Um, and so you're welcome to go looking in there for how we built it, but we don't have any documentation yet on the internal tools that the server uses to then expose to the agent. But they are there and available, and we do have some people in our early access program that are using those to build their own, basically to empower their own tools to use storybooks tools.
Yeah, a model that is coming up again and again in early access is having some type of like MCP gateway or gateway service that incorporates other kind of sub MCPs like Storybooks MCP or GitHub or
Right.
Linear.
As long as I'm sharing links, I wanted to share this as well. So this is our blog post announcing kind of the sneak peek of everything that I'm showing here. That also has the link to sign up for the early access program. So
Hey Kyle,
yeah,
it looks like the pasted links aren't getting shared with everyone. You might be only sharing it with a certain group.
it says everyone. That's interesting.
We will send those links after in the follow-up email at the end of this.
Yeah, it says I'm sending it to everyone. Strange. We've never seen that happen before. Oops. Okay. So that just reran the tests it already had. um,
Maybe
test
add
the
tests. I think we have to.
okay, sure. Add tests for entering promo code in the shopping cart, I'll say, because it tested just this component itself.
Yeah. For Rana, yeah, the recording will be shared and available after. So anyone that's registered for this will get a recording sent up in a follow-up email after.
Hmm. Yeah, I think my chat is just messed up entirely because I'm not even seeing what you just referenced. Glad you're here to help. All right, here we go. So it added interaction tests to the shopping cart menu stories. It ran them.
Oh, so it added them and then ran them like
Uh-huh.
automatically to
That's right.
prove that they worked.
So let's go look. So here we've got, so it's,
So it focused it.
hmm. Yeah, all it did was focus it. Okay. An invalid promo code, useful. Removing a promo code.
Yeah, did it do it?
I don't know. It's saying the callback was fired, but then there's no. So yeah, a little bit to investigate here. But the question at the root of doing this was, will it generate interactive stories? And yes, it will. Sometimes it'll do it on its first try, just knowing that it's an interactive thing by nature and it'll do the right thing. In my experience, it's about 50-50. But if you need to, as you can see, you can easily prompt it to generate those tests.
Yeah, and you can also add that to your system prompt um, to generate tests
Yes.
for.
Yeah.
Cool. A couple more questions. What is the timeline for the MCP available in Vue? Is that Storybook 11? Question mark.
No. So we're looking to release this into preview, which is kind of a we believe it's production ready, but we want and like we're not likely to change the API, but we might change some of the internals. Um, we're hoping to do that like mid to late March, and then Storybook 11 would not be until the fall, is what's currently planned, but don't hold me to that one. And that preview would be React only. But once we receive sufficient feedback, we definitely want to extend it to probably web components would be next because we believe this is, while it's helpful for all developers, we believe it's a superpower for design system engineers and especially the engineers that those design systems are helping. And web components are really popular in that space. And so we'd likely do web components next and then Angular and Svelte following. So all of our, oh, and Vue. So all of our core frameworks. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
A couple more questions. Timeline for GA for React, is that after March? So we'll have a preview
Yeah.
in March, mid-March, and then we'll have the GA or like production readiness for React will be sometime after, like a month or two after. Another question: will React Native ever get support? Um, Kyle, do you
Oh,
want to take that one?
probably. So we're adding that as a core framework over the next few months. And so um, that means anything that we build, if it is possible to work with it, we will support it. Um, so yeah, I would say probably. I don't believe we've done the research to confirm that everything is 100% possible. It is kind of
And then,
a different paradigm. So
yeah, and it might be useful to kind of talk through what's a core framework and what's a community framework, because folks in the chat are asking about Twig and Stencil.
yeah. So core framework is something that the Storybook team ourselves will support. Um, like we provide the repo, we maintain it, we deal with any issues, and then for any new features like the testing stuff, this MCP stuff, we will add support for those things. community frameworks. So Storybook doesn't only work with the core frameworks, it works with a bunch of stuff. But a majority of those are community frameworks where the community is in charge of maintaining it, building in features, that kind of thing. So good examples of community frameworks are, oh gosh, Nuxt would be one. Um, Gosh, maybe I should just look at the docs.
Yeah, I guess like all of the frameworks that are not React, Angular, Vue,
Yeah.
Stencil.
Preact, quick, solid. Yeah.
Cool, Kyle. Any other things that that people should know about?
Um, I don't believe so. I feel like we covered the workflow. If you're interested in trying this stuff out, try to sign up for the early access program, and we'll get you in as soon as we can.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for your great questions. Always fun to have a good audience.
Yeah, absolutely. Take care,
All right.
everyone.
Take care.